Ladies and gentlemen, today's topic is the planet with the least degree, Darakaraka, which actually indicates our spouse. Right. Actually, no, this is false information. This is fake news. The Darakaraka shows our experiences of past relationships in our previous lifetimes. It does not show our spouse. So, for example, if your Darakaraka is in Leo, Darakaraka, the planet with the least degree in your chart, if it's in Leo, it does not mean that in this damn life your husband or your wife will be very dominating, very bossy, very egoistic. No, it does not mean that. Okay, it shows how have you experienced relationships, because the Darakarak is one of the Jaiminikarakas and they show things at a soul level. It shows what did you experience in your previous lifetimes. It does not show the nature of the person that you will meet in this lifetime. Okay, now see, there are only 12 signs in astrology, 12 zodiac signs. So it will always happen that if somebody has Darakarak in Leo, like 1/12 of the population will have Darakarak in a particular sign, right? So imagine there are 7 billion people. So if you imagine there are 6 billion people, so 1/12 of them is half a billion, right? So now, if half a billion people have their Darakarak in Aries or Leo, out of half a billion, it will always happen that 1,000 or 10,000 of them will have a spouse who is dominating, egoistic, and a bit arrogant. It's by nature, it will, that percentage will be applicable to every zodiac sign, because the dark does not show the personality. Okay, but it will show what kind of experiences you have had in the past. But then you may think, oh well, but that's gone, right? That's the past. So why should we learn about it? What is our incentive in learning about the Darakara? What's in it for me, right? That's a very good question. Why should I give my time to this video? Well, the reason is, depending on your chart, if suppose your chart is not very good for marriage, then the zodiac sign where your Darakarak is placed, those issues can show patterns which might repeat and create problems in your marriage. Okay, now when I say create problems, I don't mean like it's destined to be problematic. No, I don't mean that. But especially if your chart is difficult for marriage, or you are not able to get married, or you are getting you are having breakups repeatedly, or your marriage gets finalized but it breaks, it has happened 2 3 times, or you love somebody and you are in a relationship and that person does not want to commit to marriage, or you are always in a one sided relationship, or it is like you are getting divorced again and again. So if this is your reality, if you belong to any of these groups, then you need to understand what is causing this. What are some of the patterns because of which I am forced to undergo this. All right. So there we go. We start with the Darakarak one by one. So, sorry, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe to it below. And if you would like to have a personalized consultation with me regarding your marriage or relationships or your Darakarak, please go to my website down in the description section, www.exoticastrology.in. God is there with you all the time. Just look to him and you will find him for sure. Now we go to the first sign, which is always Aries. So if your Darakarak, the planet with the least degree in your chart, is actually in Aries, now this means the dispositor of your Darakarak, which is the lord of the sign, is Mars, right? And guess what? Mars is a celibate, brahmacharya, right? Mars does not like relationships, or does he? So, what are some of the past life lessons, and what are some of the things that you need to do in this life? Okay, so in the past, it is possible that you have experienced a lot of dominating behavior. Now, were you dominating, or did your spouse dominate you? Well, that's something which we cannot answer, but you experienced this energy of authority subordinate. So what, either you or your spouse, one of them were very authoritative. Okay, or sometimes it is possible that both of you were, and it's like this toss. So you are authoritative, impulsive, and self-centered in relationships. It is very possible. Now, what happens is, in this life, if you have prominent planets in your sixth house or your 10th house, then it is likely that this behavior will continue. Or even if you have planets in your lagna, too many planets. So if your first, sixth, 10th, these three houses are loaded with planets, or most of the planets are in the nakshatras loaded by these three houses, then then it means that you are going to continue this dominating behavior towards your spouse. It is very likely. Or even if your eighth house and 12th house there, they have a lot of planets, then also it is very highly likely that you will continue to be very dominating. Okay. Now, if your trines have a lot of planets, like your fifth house and your ninth house, the first house also is a trine, but for now I will ignore it, keep it aside. But your fifth house and your ninth house, if they have a lot of planets and your Darakaraka is in Aries, then now there will be that dominating nature from your side, that will be a bit less. Okay. So you will have a tendency to uh, make impulsive decisions in your relationships, and keep not take others into consideration. Others means your spouse. And you will have a tendency to think from your perspective and not your spouse's perspective. Okay, so therefore you will have a tendency to be angry all the time, to control, and you will be very independent minded. You might bully your spouse. Now, if you have Darakaraka in Aries and you are a Manglik, along with that, we know which positions make you a Manglik, right? If Mars is in your first house, second house, fourth house, or seventh, eighth, or 12th, then you must marry another Manglik. Okay, so this is like, by default, this is like double Manglik. So if you are Manglik and your Darakaraka is in Aries, so you cannot afford to marry a non-Manglik, because then what can happen is the other person might feel that you are suppressing them too much. Okay, so therefore try to get married to a Manglik. Along with this, in your date of birth, if you have the number 9 and 4 together, like you were born on 9th April or 4th September or 13th September or 18th April, something like that, or you are born like 1949, 1994 or something like that. So either ways, if you have 4 and 9, then this is like triple Manglik yoga. Okay, because 9 and 4 in numerology makes a person very angry. Manglik makes a person angry, and Darakarak in Aries makes a person angry in relationship. So if you have these three, then it is very likely that you might behave not in the best way with your spouse. Okay, so what are things that you should learn and do in this life? You should learn patience, cooperation, and you should learn compromise. Okay, adjustments have to be made in marriage, or else marriage cannot survive. Develop teamwork rather than acting impulsively. Okay, so understand that it is not you or he or she, but it's you both. Okay, it's we basically. And you should try to balance your assertiveness with understanding, and try to avoid ego conflicts. Okay, of course, easier said than done, but this is what is your lesson in this life. All right, Aries, wish you all the best. Now, if your Darakaraka is in the sign of Taurus, then your dispositor of Darakarak, which is Lord of your sign, Lord of the sign where Darakarak is, that is none other than Venus. So you are reasonably fortunate in this area. Now, disclaimer, fortunate does not mean you necessarily have a good married life. Now, along with this placement, suppose you have Darakarak in Taurus. We'll come to that in a minute, what it means. Let's first discuss what it means. So it means you have valued long-term relationships in your past lifetimes, provided in this life. Now, will you also do that in this lifetime? You will mostly, provided your Darakara, which is in Taurus, is not afflicted by either Mars or Rahu. So if you have Darakarak in the sign of Taurus, and your Mars also is there, or your Mars is aspecting, or Rahu is there, or Rahu is aspecting, then it can happen that inherently you want long-term relationships, but due to some reason, in this lifetime, you are looking for short-term relationships. Okay, you are looking for hookups, dating, short-term dating, and all this. And it is possible that in your previous lifetimes, you enjoyed a lot of materialistic comforts, luxury, travel, good food, and all this with your spouse. And relationships revolved around security or possessions. It was less about how the person looks, or how compatible you are, or how much you are aligned, but it was more of like staying together. It was more of stability, security, and having that sense of belonging, that we are made for each other, even though we are incompatible to some extent. All right. Now, this is in general a great placement, but as I said, if Mars or Rahu is involved, then this the good things can be reduced. Okay. Also, along with this, in your date of birth, if you have the number 6 or number 7, then this helps this. So which means, if you are born on like a 6 July, or 15 July, or 7 June or 16 June, or you're born on 1976, 1967, or either ways you have 6 and 7, or at least if you have one of them, this pleasure, luxury, sexuality, romance, beauty, all these things will be amplified. Okay, which is good for a healthy relationship. Nothing wrong with it. Now, the only danger that this gives you is if you are having too many twos in your date of birth. Now, what does this mean? It means if you have like if you are born on 22nd February 1992, so your date of birth has like 4 twos, right? Or it could be even 2 twos or 3 twos, like 2 twos means 22nd of January or something, or 22nd February. Okay, so either ways, or you are born in 2022, somebody is born, right? They may not be watching YouTube now, but they will watch someday, right? So if you have too many twos, then the danger with this placement is you will be a bit too stubborn and possessive. You will want to keep your spouse to you. It's like, and it will, you cannot tolerate if others are interacting a bit closely with your spouse. Okay, especially members of the opposite sex. Even yeah, I mean, so if you are a man and you have this, you are born on like 12 February, and your Darakaraka is in Taurus, so you will not like other men interacting with your wife. Okay, you will, and that will be visible in your face. Now, of course, nobody likes people interacting with their spouse beyond a certain extent, but for you that will be a bit extra possessive. Okay, now, what are the things that you need to do in this life? Well, you need to value emotional connections more rather than just the materialistic stuff. And in case you have a lot of two in your date of birth, then you need to value letting go, and not being too possessive or too jealous of others. And at the end, you need to understand married life is good if it is peaceful and happy, but at the end, marriage is not meant just for sexual enjoyment, or roaming and having a nice time. It is meant for spiritual elevation. So try to do spiritual practices and elevate yourself and your spouse together, okay, towards spirituality. Thank you so much, Taurus. Please take care. Now we go to Gemini. If your Darakaraka planet with the least degrees in Gemini, then the dispositor is Mercury. Now, is Mercury a good uh, dispositor for your Darakaraka, or is it not good? Well, it depends on your chart. Now, Mercury, Venus is the planet which shows love relationships, and Venus gets debilitated in the sign of Virgo, which is lorded by Mercury. But Venus also does good in Gemini. So what is this? is it like good or bad, if your Darakarak is in Gemini. So you need to understand, it depends on your chart. Well, how can you see that? If in your chart you have a good trines, okay, which means your fifth house, ninth house, they are strong, you have important planets there, then this can be good. So what does it mean if you have Darakarak in Gemini? It means, you are quite playful and quite jolly in your relationships. Now, jolly not necessarily at a deeper level. It shows, a bit of like superficial nature sometimes. Now, if in your chart it shows that your married life is good, so then you will in general be happy in marriage, but you'll be a bit more jolly. You will just like joke around with your wife or your husband at times. You will taunt them, you will tease them, you will do all these things. Okay. But if your married life is not good and it shows, you have a tendency to have affairs, then this is a disaster, because then you will hop like dogs and pigs from one person to the other. Okay, so this is indeed a dangerous placement for you. Or if your chart indicates, that you may be cheated, then also this is not a good combination thing to have in the chart, because otherwise your spouse may do or they may behave like this. Okay, but again, that has to be seen from the chart. But you need to understand, this is in general a great thing to have Darakarak in Gemini. It's good to be open minded and have nice communication and to explore the world. It's good from all perspectives of life, to not be too serious and not take things too seriously. At the same time, if the Lagna Lord is badly placed, or your Jupiter, Sun, Moon, these are not well placed, then you need to understand that you will be headless in relationships. It's like, you're like, I don't know what's going on. I am in this open marriage, I am in a situation ship, I am in a confusion ship, or whatever, all these Gen Z terms. You will become more and more headless. You will behave like dogs and pigs, as I said, right? So, therefore, for this combination to be good, it is imperative that you need a strong Lagna Lord, strong Sun, strong Moon, strong Venus, strong seventh house. Or overall, the chart should be relatively nice, okay, for marriage, not for career only. And this is a good thing, you have experienced a lot of intellectual discussions with your spouse in your previous lifetimes. And now, in your date of birth, if you have the number 6, this can be indicative of the fact that you have a flirty nature, along with if you have Darakara in the sign of Gemini. Okay, if you have 2, then also it can show you love to flirt with the opposite sex. Okay, so all these things can be a bit detrimental. But what should you do in this lifetime if you have this? So if you have this, then you need to make sure that you interact properly with your spouse, but with other members of the opposite sex, you you maintain some reasonable good distance. You can be friends, but the problem with this is friendship can turn into something else very quickly. Okay, so know your boundaries and do not cross the red line, otherwise the rest will be history. Okay, and if the chart is good, then it's great. But if it is not, then you should learn to focus on consistency with one person. Okay, that is the only way you can be happy. You cannot be happy if you are jumping from one place to the other. Okay, that will not give you long term happiness. And the problem is, if you have a very strong Mars or a very strong Sun, you can be very judgmental, or you are too overly analytical or too much money conscious. Okay, so try to avoid that in relationships, and apart from that, it's fine. Okay, thank you, Gemini. Now, if your Darakarak is in Cancer, what does this mean? Cancer is lorded by the Moon. So is Moon a good dispositor for the Darakara? Moon, Venus, best friends, right? Enemies. What the hell is going on? Two planets, watery planets, Jala Tattva planets, they are enemies. It's like the wife and the mother, rivals. So, what are some of the past life experiences that you have had with this? Now, This is very, very, very critical. If you have this placement, then you must check the chart. Now, I have said this for almost every zodiac sign, but for you, Cancer, I cannot stress enough on this. Darakaraka in Cancer will show, you might have, very, 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 you might have had a very happy married life. It's like emotionally very secure, very sound, or you might have been you might have been dejected by your spouse. It's like you have deep emotional trauma which you need to heal in this life. Now, how will you know what will happen in this life? Now, if you have your Darakaraka in Cancer, and along with that, if Mars or Saturn is impacting, like especially Saturn, then you need to understand that there could be situations in your life where you get into a one-sided relationship. Okay, this is very, very, very possible, and you are longing for somebody to come back or somebody to love you back, but nobody loves you. Okay, it is possible. Along with that, or suppose you don't have Saturn is not aspecting a Daraka, or he's not conjunct Daraka in the sign of Cancer. But in numerology, if you have the number 6 and you have the number 8, then also this can be a bit tough. Okay, because 6 is the number of Venus, romance, luxury, and 8 is the number of Saturn. In numerology, 8, if it is even, like, single 8, triple 8, like that, it can show you have some suffering. Now, if 6 is there, it means you can have suffering in relationships. Okay, you can see many people who have had sufferings in relationships. They will always have, 6 and 8. Most of them, 70 to 80% of them will have. So, therefore, it could be that if you have this in, if your Dharaka is in Cancer, because Cancer is the sign of the mother, it's like just give, don't think of anything, just keep giving, and what happens when you are in a, one-sided love relationship? It's not a relationship. But what happens? You are going on doing things for the other person. You are going on, going on, going on, but there's no reciprocation. Okay. So you might have sacrificed too much, or you are overly dependent on the spouse. It's like, okay, the spouse has, your husband, your wife has to keep messaging you all the time. They have to, like, pamper you. You will pamper them. It's like a very emotionally emotionally centered relationship. Okay, now this is great if you get reciprocation, but if you don't get reciprocation, this can be a nightmare. So it's specifically for you, if you have dark arc in Cancer, I must tell you that do not do not invest in people that do not invest back in you. This is not just for your lover or your spouse, or any long-term partner. This is for any human being. So otherwise this can leave you completely drained and you may be exhausted to the core. Okay, if your dark arc is in Cancer, because when you are doing things for others, you don't think, your brain doesn't work. Okay, especially if you have this in Cancer. And along with this, if you have number 2 in numerology, like, too many times, like 2nd February, or 22nd February, 22nd February 1992, something like that, then you need to understand that this can be a bit more. Okay, so your emotional dependency could be more. So in this life, try to see reciprocation and invest accordingly, and balance nurturing others with self-care. So do self-care also. Okay, and try to seek for healthy emotional boundaries, and also set healthy boundaries yourself. Okay, otherwise people may run all over you. Okay, take care, Cancer. Now, if you have Darakarak in Leo, the sun, my spouse will be dominating, he or she will beat the hell out of me. What is this? I will not get married. No, this is not correct, thankfully. If you have Darakaraka in Leo, what does it mean? Contrary to what people think, I get so many messages, people, horrified. Oh, my Darakaraka is in Leo. My spouse will, finish me if I'm married. Should I even get married? So don't worry. It does not mean you will get a dominating and a ego-driven, authoritative, power-hungry, narcissistic, bloodthirsty spouse. It does not mean that. Okay. It just means you have experienced considerable power struggles in your previous lifetimes. Now, why power struggles happen? It could be that your spouse was like this, or it could be that you are like this, or it could be, situations were such that you are both incompatible and, you are a bit frustrated and, yeah, it's like, you had to experience this. Okay. It is possible that that could be the reason. But nonetheless, there could be n number of reasons. So you experienced authoritative or ego-driven relationships, okay, where people like, you or your spouse, you are trying your best to show others, how you are better than the other. Okay, so therefore, you might have experienced relationships where one of them was a very strong power center, either you or somebody else. Now, if in your date of birth, your destiny number is 1, destiny number means you sum up your entire date of birth, all the numbers, and you get total as 1, then in this life, you will be the one who will be arrogant and, egoistic, dominating. You will dominate your spouse, okay? And along with that, if you are a Manglik or if you have Surya in Lagna, Surya in the 10th in your original birth chart, then this tendency to be more controlling and dominating will increase. Okay. And along with that, or if these factors are not there, but if your Atma Karak is the sun, Atma Karak means the planet with the highest degree. Okay. Exactly opposite of the Darakaraka. If that is the sun, then you will have a tendency to dominate others. Okay. And there are many other ways, you can find out. There are indications in palmistry also, like somebody's this finger, what is this? The Saturn finger. If this is tilting too much, like, oops, this is tilting towards this side, then this means the person can be very dominating. Okay. But nonetheless, you have to understand that if you have this placement, then if you are behaving like this yourself, you need to stop it. Otherwise, you will create ugra karma, bad karma. Okay. And this will perpetually give you suffering. And on the contrary, if you are not like this, if in your date of birth, there are too many nines, like, 9 September 1999, something like this, or, 18 September, or yeah, it could be anything. Okay. 9th January 1998. So, a lot of nines. Then it is likely that you might get bullied by your spouse. Okay. So, therefore, if you are on the other side, you are on the receiving side, then you have to draw healthy boundaries. Because since this is Darakaraka, so the past impressions are there. Okay. And you might panic a bit. So, for example, if your Darakaraka is in Leo and Saturn is aspecting, you may be in some kind of a relationship which is known as, trauma bonding. It's like, you fear that if I speak up, the person will leave me. Okay. I don't know exactly if that's what trauma bonding is. I think that's like, trauma bonding is a bit different, but I hope you understand what I mean, right? It's like the person gives you trauma, but you are so used to that, you think now if that is not there, maybe my relationship breaks. And because of that, you kind of continue to be disrespected by your spouse. All right. So please have healthy boundaries. If you are the one doing this, then please cultivate some humility and equal partnerships and avoid unnecessary ego battles. Okay. And try to develop a desire to serve each other, and then you will be happy in life. All right. So, Leo, Darakarak, please take care. Now, if Darakarak is in Virgo, What's going on? Virgo is the sign where Venus gets debilitated, and Virgo is lorded by Mercury. So is this good or is this bad? See, good or bad, when you ask me if is this good for marriage or bad for marriage, for that you need to check, your second house, your seventh house, 11th house. You need to check your seventh lord, second lord, 11th lord. You need to check Venus. You need to check your trinal lords. They will ultimately tell you if this is going to be good for you or bad for you. But today, I will tell you what it means from your previous lifetimes and when this can be good or when this can be bad. Okay. Number one, if you have this placement, it it means it is very, very, very likely that you are overly critical of your spouse in your previous lifetimes, or you experience that from your spouse, or maybe you both were not like that in the previous lifetime, but due to some reason you are finding faults with each other. Okay. And you focus more on duties and obligations, superficial things. On paper, it's like, oh, it's there on paper, it must be done, like ticking all the formalities, and you did not focus much on actually developing a genuine relationship. So now, if in your society, wherever you are born, in your culture, there's considerable formalities, and you have had a arranged marriage, and you, in your chart, you have this Darakarak in Virgo, and there is aspect of Saturn or Ketu or conjunction of the Sun especially, then it can mean, you are like, you are very good as a spouse, but you are like, you have this thing like, oh, our relationship must be like this, it can't be this or that, it has to be, it has to be, how can it not be like this or like that, so you might have too many, like, external things, like, oh, we are now married, we have to have a house by the time we are 30, or we must have children by the time we are 28 or whatever, so you might have all these things about relationships which are not necessarily bad, but they can be a nightmare sometimes, because it could happen that the other person is not capable of handling all this. Okay. Like, you want to have kids by 28, 30, but what if the other person doesn't want? So then there are problems. Okay. So for this placement to be good, you need to have exceptionally strong trines. So a strong fifth house, strong ninth house, that will make you more balanced. Okay. And of course, focusing on duties and obligations is beautiful. There's nothing wrong with it. But understand that duties and obligations, if taken out of context and extrapolated beyond limits, then it can actually ruin your life. Okay. So if your relationship is not ready for something, then give it time. Okay. So be a bit patient. You may lack patience. And if Mars is involved, so suppose your Jupiter is Darakarak and it is in the sign of Virgo, and Mars is aspecting, so you will have a tendency to constantly criticize your spouse, because you have seen that in your previous lifetimes. You are like, speaking foul words, you are abusing verbally. So that's not good. Okay. So learn acceptance and patience. So in this life, if you want to have a good relationship with this placement, then you have to learn to accept people for who they are. Although that does not mean that you keep tolerating any nonsense which they do. You have to convey that, this is something which I think is not good in your life. It is damaging you and our relationship. So please try to improve it, or come out of this. Okay. And but at the same time, don't be too critical and learn to develop, emotional connection, spend time together, not too much about, life is not just about formalities. Okay. And be open hearted and develop some spontaneity in the relationship, like go somewhere, have a nice time, enjoy, have fun. That's also important rather than, ticking all the boxes. Okay. So Virgo, take care if you have this, right? No worries. Now, Darakaraka is in Libra, the best position, right? Because Libra is the sign ruled by Venus and it's the Mool Trikon sign. Or, well, is it? Well, the chart will decide. So, if you have this position, then it, in general, it means that you had experienced, harmony, balance, diplomacy, love, sexuality, luxury, all these things, all the traditional, traditional in the sense, not like Vedic, but in general, in any part of the world you go, whenever, whatever they say are indications of a good marriage, it seems you have tried achieving that and your spouse has also tried, or the dynamics were healthy. Okay. So this is in general a good placement. It means you have tried to amicably resolve your conflicts. Now, does it mean the same things will happen in this lifetime? That's an interesting question. Well, guess what? For that, you need to check the chart. Now, in your chart, if you have a planet in Libra, which is your Darakaraka, like say, you have Moon in Libra, and Moon is your Darakaraka. Now, if Jupiter is aspecting this, or Jupiter is also conjunct Moon, then it means the maturity is better. It's like supreme, it's like amazing. But suppose Saturn is aspecting this, then what will happen is you will always be on the side who is, like compromising more and more and more, just to maintain the balance and harmony, because you have this thing, no, the relationship must be maintained, harmony should be there should not be quarrels, fights, and all. Now, that's great, but if Saturn is involved, you might get bullied by your spouse, and you might get uh, you might be neglected at times, and because of this placement you will not feel like speaking up. Okay. So Libra is the sign where the sun gets debilitated, which means you kind of ignore your individuality and you're like, okay, let's keep the status quo, let's maintain it. Okay. So this is a good placement to have a long term marriage, but the problem is, if like for Saturn, as I've spoken, but if imagine if Mars is involved, then there could be violence and you are not speaking up because no, oh, what will people say, or I don't want to break it, I'll be alone, there's nobody for me, what will happen, I can't live alone, I can't die single. So I'm tolerating if somebody is coming and uh, abusing me physically or whatever, mentally, emotionally, sexually, and I'm tolerating all this. Okay. And along with Mars, Saturn, if in your date of birth, if you have 6 and 8 together, then also this might mean people take advantage of you. Okay. They take advantage, financially. If you are a man and if you have this, then you need to be careful with other women, because, they might, generally, how is a man exploited? Generally, like, you may be exploited because of money, or if you're a female, you might be exploited in some other way. Okay. Depending on your personality and your nature. So this is generally a great placement, but can be a bit harsh on your side. Okay. Because you are giving away too much. This is a bit similar to placement in Cancer. Okay. So if you have this, you need to understand that you should not just be on the receiving end of difficulty. Okay. So you should speak up, you should maintain the harmony, but you should also, not let the other person disturb you. Okay. So, and don't try to avoid things too much. Oh, don't talk about it. Our home will break if it happens. So talk and try to settle conflicts amicably to whatever extent possible, but don't run beyond a certain point. Otherwise, you will reach a situation where you might become mentally insane because you have tolerated a lot. Okay, and try to seek depth and authenticity, and also do meditation, spiritual practices, and because of that, you will be able to be a better person yourself. And the better you are, the better you can be as a spouse. All right. Take care, Libra. Now we go to Darakaraka in Scorpio, the most awaited holy sign, Scorpio, right? Scorpio, lorded by Mars and also lorded by the planet of detachment, Ketu. Now, if your Darakaraka is in Scorpio, is it good or bad in this lifetime? Well, that will depend on your chart. But what does it actually mean? It just means, you have experienced very intense relationships, in your previous lifetime. So now, this is in general a difficult placement. You know why? Because now, in this life, whatever happens, you may take things in a wrong way. Not necessarily wrong, but you may exaggerate things. Okay, you may do a lot of drama with this. Why? Because somewhere deep down inside, you have faced a lot of trauma in your previous relationships. Now, because of that, what happens? Like, you are at your home and your spouse is out for some office party. Then your mind will always be like, oh, what is he or she doing there? Maybe they are, flirting with somebody, maybe they are having an affair. Why they are not back home? Now, it might be possible that your spouse is just being, meeting people officially, and, just he or she is behaving very cordially. But you will feel like that, especially in your date of birth. If you have the number 8, or if you have, 9 and 4 together, or if you have, 6, 8, 9, 4, then these things will be more prominent. Okay. And you may be very jealous, very possessive. This is a combination of, like, Darakaraka in Cancer, and, you can be very egoistic sometimes. It's like Leo energy is there. You can be too self-centric. It's like the Aries energy is there, like Taurus energy is there. You want a lot of materialistic stuff. You are overly sexual at times. So this is like a roller coaster of emotions. So for you, if you have this placement and if your married life is in doldrums, then please, please, please take some time off from your marriage. Now, when I say take some time off, I don't mean separate or divorce, but please understand, everybody has a limited capacity. Nobody can satisfy you 100%. Nobody. You also cannot satisfy somebody 100%. So why do you expect that somebody else will satisfy you 100%? Nobody can do it. Except, of course, Krishna is the only person who can satisfy everybody 100%, because he is Swam Bhagwan, but nobody else is Bhagwan, only he. So, yeah, that's the problem. So now, on the other hand, you may sometimes be on the receiving end of so many, betrayals, like violence, like trauma and all these things. Even in this life, if you're, sixth house, eighth house, 12th house, if they are very prominent, then you may experience all these problems in this lifetime also. And that can further corrupt your intelligence in a wrong way. So, suppose, you were in a relationship and you got cheated, unfortunately, then now, if you get into another relationship, your brain will always be like, oh, I get cheated again, 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 so you will start to believe in these toxic patterns again and again. So it is imperative that you understand that not every person is bad. Okay, I understand it's easier said than done. If you have been cheated like 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, you will compulsively believe that the next person will also cheat me. I know it's easier said than done to not do it, not think like that. But you have to undergo emotional healing. So for you, If you have this placement and Mars, Saturn are involved, your sixth house, eighth house, 12th house is prominent, and you have experienced betrayal, cheating, and all these nonsense things, please take some time off. Go to some center, do some healing, do spiritual practices, take some time off, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. No new relationships, please. Heal yourself. Be a bit vulnerable at times. Have spiritual growth. Give up the desire to control, manipulate, and do unnecessary drama. Do it at least for 1 year before you get into a new relationship. And when you do that, then you will see you are coming back much better. Okay. All the best, Scorpio. Now, if Darakaraka is in Sagittarius, too much unwanted advice. Sagittarius is the sign of Jupiter, and guess what? The guru does. Bombarding your spouse with information that they are not interested in. It's like you are full of crap sometimes. Well, what does it mean? If you have Darakaraka planned with the least degree in Sagittarius, lorded by Jupiter, it means you are adventurous, you are idealistic, and you are happy as a person in relationships. You are like how do I say? It's like you are like the driving machine, the driving engine of the relationship. Or maybe your spouse was like somebody who could really take care of you, guide you. Your spouse is like your guru at times. And you are now you now expect the same. So what can happen with this is, if your chart is good, you might be able to be literally like your guru, or the guru for your spouse. Okay, which means you can help your spouse, help them become a better person. So this is in general a good placement. But if Saturn is aspecting this, so suppose you have Venus in Sagittarius, and Venus is your Darakaraka, but Saturn aspects this. So what can happen is, you kind of try to think, you not actually think, you actually believe that you are superior to your spouse. Okay, you believe your spouse is not good for you. You have kind of settled for less. Okay, so you might sometimes look down upon your spouse. You may think, what is this? I did a mistake by selecting them, right? So you might have this, what is that? You may think very high of yourself, like, not in an arrogant sense, but you have this, it's me after all, I am me, right? So on the other side, if your chart is good and you have the number 3 in your date of birth, 3 is the number of Jupiter. So you have prioritized spirituality, knowledge, growth over mundane things, doing charity, doing seva. So it is a great placement indeed. If your chart is good, you're really very fortunate, and it shows you had done a lot of spiritual practices with your spouse together, and you can continue doing that in this very life also. But be careful that you might sometimes reject somebody's individuality, because you think that that is not correct. Like, sometimes if you are too analytical and your spouse is a bit emotional, you may discard that. Hey, what is this? Why are you being so dramatic? Okay, why are you thinking too much? Okay, like, that's not reality. Now, it's true, it may not be reality for you, but please be sensitive towards your spouse, because with this placement there could be a situation where you actually believe that you know what's best for the relationship. Now, when you think like that, it is possible that you know what's best, but it might also be that whatever you think is best for you is best for you, also think is best for the relationship, which may not be correct. Okay, so therefore, If you feel that your spouse has become a bit distant from you, then you need to understand it is most likely because I have ignored their individuality, their likes, dislikes, and preferences, and tried to superimpose my ideals. Okay, so the best thing that you need to do is learn to see things from a spiritual and also from an emotional perspective, because Sagittarius is a fire sign. The water can dry up sometimes. Okay, too many rules, regulations. It can be a bit similar to Virgo energy at times, but there is optimism and there is faith in general. Okay, so learn to give freedom to your spouse, or if you are the victim, you are not getting all this, learn to speak up and uh, develop patience, realism, and understand everybody is a different person and everybody need not think like you. All right, Sagittarius, take care. Now we go to Darakaraka in the sign of Capricorn. Oh, it's the sign of Saturn. My marriage is finished, right? So many males. Leo and Capricorn and Scorpio, the most dreaded signs for Darakaraka, right? Oh, sir, I have this in Capricorn. My spouse will be dull. He or she will be very boring. They will be ugly. They will not like me. I can't even get divorced. I can't even be happy. It's such a boring life. That's the end of my life. Please tell me, sir, what will happen? Well, see, if your Darakara is in Capricorn, then you need to understand that your married life can be, depending on your chart, will be a bit practical and realistic and a bit serious. But this does not mean that it will be a very dry or hollow or empty marriage. Now I'll tell you when it can happen. If in your date of birth, if you have too many male energies, male numbers like 319, and you also have 5, 5 is the number of Mercury. So you might be thinking too much about money and savings, and yeah, it might be like you are too conscious about your resources at times, because in your previous lifetimes you have experienced a lot of hardships, hardships not in the relationship but hardships in life in general. And because of that you have become a very strict person, and you are very restrictive, like, oh, don't go here, don't do this, this will happen, that will happen, we have to spend a lot of money doing this, oh, that's risky, what if it doesn't work, because Saturn is the eternal pessimist, right? So you might be a bit pessimistic towards everything in life, and that might reflect more when you are in a relationship. Okay, because the relationship is like a, how do I say, it is like a avenue for exploration of the world. So because of that, you may feel that you or your spouse may feel like, we are discussing too much practicality, and there's not much happiness in the relationship. Or it could happen that you have experienced a lot of karmic burdens, like, if you are from some village in India now, and you are the eldest son, and you have like two or three sisters, younger sisters, and in some places in India, they will say, first get your younger sisters married and only then you can marry. Okay, so by doing all this, you become like 38, 39, and 40, 40 plus, and you are like, "Ah, I'm done with marriage. I don't want to be married now." Okay, so you have to understand that life can be tough sometimes. Like, not because you have this placement, but what has happened is, in from the past lifetimes, you have let all these difficulties of a generic life, the general life difficulties, you have let them spill over in the relationships. Okay, so you need to understand that life is tough for everybody, but it does not have to be like this always in relationships. So the good part is you are practical and you will make good decisions when it comes to your long term future. But the problematic thing is you may struggle to open up emotionally. So the lesson is you should open up emotionally. You may not focus too much on luxury, sexuality, or like show off, which is actually good, but you may also become very distant emotionally. So best thing to do, if you have this placement and if you feel your relationship has become very dry and is very it's not exciting anymore, then you need to understand that you have to take some time off. So go for vacations, like trips, spend some nice time together, and just be there for each other. And when you do this, you will see that your relationship is now changing. Okay. So try to develop faith in God, and yeah, do your best, but not everything in life is just about surviving. That is what you should realize. Life is also meant to enjoy, provided you do not break the codes of the scriptures. Okay. Thank you so much, Capricorn. Take care. Now we go to Darakaraka in Aquarius, lorded by Saturn and Rahu. Oh, wow. What a sign, right? Now, this shows if your Darakaraka is in Aquarius, then this shows that you were very unconventional in your approach towards relationships, or detached or a bit rebellious. You are like, anti-establishment, anti-society, anti-religion or something, it's like neti, neti, neti. It's like no negation of everything. This is not good. This is not good. This is not good. Something like that. Okay. You might have you might have had one of the extremes. You focus too much on what society says, or you were like, no, I will do exactly the opposite of what society says. Or you are like now focusing more on external things rather than your relationship. So it's like saying, suppose you have this placement, and in your date of birth, if you have number 5, if you have number 7, then it is likely that you will focus more on money and external things in this life, and your relationship may be there, but it may be just there as a thing. It's like it's there, but I mean, it's there officially, but there's not much connection that you have with your spouse. Or there is there's something required. You married because of some social pressure or something. You married because of formalities. Okay. And you feel that you should have not married this person. I should have married somebody else, and all this. So these kind of things might be there. Okay. So what should you do if you have this placement? You should develop emotional intimacy and commitment, and also you should develop friendship. Okay. And you have a fear of emotional intimacy, emotional dependency. So you might feel that I have become very much detached, and i I cannot be with somebody. Okay. Now, this is not because you have experienced trauma, but it is just because you have focused too much on your career, or show off, or building assets, money, name, fame, power, position, external world, and relationships kind of took a back seat. And because of that, what can happen is you may now you may feel that I don't care, if this relationship is there or not there, but you need to understand that external things may give you happiness, they may give you fulfillment, but at the end, long term relationships with humans, especially your spouse or your close, near and dear ones, they will give you ultimate happiness, because they will be the one with whom you will share all this. Okay. Otherwise there is nobody with whom you can share, because when you only run behind external achievements, then what can happen is you will have a lot, but the people with whom you will share, they will only be there till the time everything is nice. Like you are a YouTuber or you are in Instagram, you have a lot of followers and you throw a party. Oh, everybody is there, But suppose your channel declines, you don't get followers or subscribers anymore. Will they still support you? Will you still be relevant? That's the question you need to ask. Okay. So if you feel that you are only running behind external things and you think marriage is not important, then you are mistaken. Okay. And you might be inspired by too many, modern ideals, so-called modern or rather animalistic, bizarre, materialistic ideals, oh, just have sex with anybody, just be in this situationship, open relationship, hook up or whatever, just enjoy and then forget it, who takes responsibility, right? Or just make money, you don't need relationships. Okay. Now, if your psychophysical nature is fit for becoming a brahmachari, celibate, then it's a separate thing. You can join the ashram, but otherwise, it is recommended you marry, or else you will fall prey to sinful habits, like illicit sex and all these things. That is detrimental for you. Okay, so if you have this placement, please value emotional connections and not just external things like money. Okay, take care, Aquarius. Last but not the least, if your Darakarak is in the sign of Pisces, the exaltation sign of Venus and lorded by Jupiter, you may be supremely lucky. Now, whether you are actually lucky in this life or not, that you have to check from the chart. I'll tell you some parameters by which you can check. But let's first try to understand what it means in your previous lifetimes if you had this placement. Well, it means, your love relationship was very idealistic. It was dreamy. It was full of illusions. You were a spiritual seeker. Either you had a great relationship or you were like a complete celibate. You were a brahmachari or a sannyasi. You did not marry, or you took sannyas and you left your spouse for, higher pursuits. Okay. So now it shows you are deeply, you are deeply involved in the relationship. It shows, you wanted to do things for others. You also experienced very good love. You experienced a lot of reciprocation from your spouse. Okay. Or it could mean like in this life, in this your birth chart, suppose you have moon in Pisces and moon is your Darakara, and you have Jupiter or Venus aspecting that, then it shows, there's like a lot of happiness, enjoyment, lot of things, mundane things. And if the ninth lord is involved, a lot of spiritual things are there. If Mercury is involved, a lot of money is involved. Venus is involved, a lot of sexuality is involved. But if Saturn, Rahu, they are involved, especially Saturn, then it can show that you are so idealistic and you are so much, you have this nature of fault finding that nobody seems appealing to you. You cannot get into a relationship. So if Saturn is involved with your Darakara, which is in Pisces, so Saturn is conjunct or aspecting your Darakara in Pisces, and your Lagna, 6th and 10th, these three houses are very prominent, then it shows you will not want to marry because you have very high ideals and you're like, no, I need all these, tick boxes, check, check, check. I need all the boxes checked, only then I can proceed, otherwise not. So you might have these idealistic thoughts. Now, on the contrary, as I said, if you have like Jupiter, Venus, or Moon impacting your Dharaka, then you will be like very open, very, you'll be, your nature will be like very accepting, you'll be very cordial, calm, peaceful, and all this. Now, if Mars is involved, then it can mean that you are cordial, but at the same time, you have too many expectations. You expect too much reciprocation. Like you did this, they also should do this. Okay. So if there are malefics associated, this can make things difficult. If benefics are there, it can make your life like heaven. So what are the lessons? The lessons are very simple. You need to be realistic. You need to learn realism in love, and see your partner as a combination of humanity and divinity. Don't idealize your partner. Don't idealize your relationship. You can idealize yourself, but not your relationship or your spouse. Okay. And on the good side, you might be spiritual, or at the same time, you might get into addictions. Because if Mars, Saturn, two malefics are impacting. You want to marry, but you cannot find anybody. Your sixth house is good. So in these situations, try to avoid escapism or alcohol and all these things. Okay, not very good. So in short, you should develop healthy boundaries and be realistic, be optimistic, be happy, be romantic, be everything, but don't forget to be realistic. And if malefics are associated, then don't expect too much. Okay, I mean, everybody will expect something or other, but that should be within limits. Otherwise, it will choke you up. All right, so this is a great placement. You are fortunate if you have this, and especially if the benefits are related, then you are supremely fortunate. Okay, otherwise, if you want to stay unmarried, that's great, nothing wrong with it, but don't be too harsh on yourself or on your spouse. All right, thank you so much. Please leave in your comments, everybody. Take care. Jai Siya Ram.